Hey everyone, happy Thursday. Hope everybody's having a great week so far. Um, Two things I wanted to talk about today. One was the budget request from SCOTUS for more security. Again, there goes Pepper. Um, and then the other was ICE enforcement, just or immigration. I should say immigration enforcement by ICE more broadly. Um, but I want to start with the hearing that happened the other day with Amy Coney Barrett and Elena Kagan. Um, I want to look at it from the perspective of like what you view as more important. Um, and I think the way that people look at this is heavily determined by your sex, um, whether you're male or female, and your ability to weigh risk tolerance. Um, there is a reason why men choose jobs that are higher in risk. You can look at this from the perspective of being in the military, to being a police officer, to being a firefighter, to be people that are on the front line, where the threat of death as part of your job is significantly high. You can look at this, the people that work in ironworks factories, where they're working around molten metals. You don't see many women in these jobs, and it's not because men are making it difficult for women to get jobs in these fields. It's because women do not want to work in these fields. This is also why you see a ton of women in HR, a ton of women in marketing, a ton of women in more caregiving positions, nurses. You find it in doctors and things like that. It's our gender um, ultimately kind of leads us to um, certain jobs or opens us up to jobs that otherwise we may not be interested in doing. Again, men tend to choose jobs that are higher in risk. Um, but when you take regular jobs and you apply a sense of risk to them, what you find again is that um, women will recoil from those jobs, men will tend to thrive in those jobs. I think the easiest way to look at this in maybe a office setting is sales. Um, there are super high pressure sales environments tend to be dominated by men. Slightly lower pressure sales environments, think medical device sales or pharmaceuticals, you tend to see more women. Um, but it's the pressure and the stress of the job um, that ultimately drives the kind of people that tend to be drawn into those positions. Don't get me wrong, there are some of the best salespeople that I know are women, um, and there have been women that I've met that do blue collar jobs. I'm not saying that women can't do these jobs. I'm just saying that your genetics, your sex, tends to determine outcomes. And there are some people that tend to like these jobs that otherwise would not be the typical kind of candidate. Now, I say all that to talk about this particular hearing or this budget request, essentially, that SCOTUS is asking for. It's not lost on me that there weren't men sitting there. Um, they had two women, and they could have had two of the, Democratic nominated or Democrat nominated SCOTUS individuals. So it could have just been Elena Kagan, and it could have been Ketanji Brown Jackson, or um, it could have been Sonia Sotomayor. Like it could have been any one of these people, but they had to make it bipartisan, which is why Amy Coney Barrett is sitting there. Um, but my hot take and my personal opinion is that if you don't feel safe in your job, you should probably not be in that job. And the way that Amy Coney Barrett was explaining, rightfully so, don't get me wrong. Somebody does a swats your house, or calls in the SWAT team essentially on your house, says there's someone with a gun and all this other stuff, and yeah, you have a bunch of armed people busting in your door. Um, at least in her case, it fortunately wasn't like that because they have security on site. But for regular people, it'd be like busting the door and you could potentially get someone killed. Like, I understand that. That is inherently dangerous and could be scary. But this is the world that we live in right now. If you're concerned about threats online, you probably shouldn't be in the job. And again, that's just my personal opinion. I could show you various comments on my X feed of people. I do not care. I do not care. And I'll continue to put out content as long as I feel like, doing so, which could be well into the future. But I'm not going to stop putting out content because I get some threat from some random person online. And if my house got swatted, yeah, I'd be pissed off. And I'd make more content and I would double and triple down. I wouldn't recoil and be like, oh, I shouldn't do this anymore because I'm in fear of my life. Absolutely not. And it's for Supreme Court justices to go out and talk about how they have all these threats and they need more security, they don't feel safe. It doesn't bode well for decisions that are coming out of SCOTUS. So, like, if they have this fear in their mind, specifically in this case, Amy Coney Barrett and Elena Kagan, the decisions in which they're making could be influenced by this fear that they have, which is completely rational to them. But it does not bode well for making decisions regardless of how people are going to react. Like, the fact that you can actually determine if there is a hot issue coming out on the Supreme Court because they put up the barriers, that's a problem. There should be no barriers there anytime. Maybe they want to have more police presence, like, inside or whatever. But that is kind of foreshadowing. And it's the Supreme Court justices, a handful of them, that are saying, hey, we should probably have more people here because I'm concerned that our decision could. Now, you want to look at a decision that could have been swayed by fear of, threats of violence or actual violence. You need to look no further than the decision on birthright citizenship. Now, Amy Coney Barrett's decision kind of threw everybody. They're like, this came out, like, I was blindsided by this. These are people that have been following Supreme Court for a very long time, conservative justices, specifically her, and now she's ruled in other things. It kind of threw him for a loop. It could be maybe she's got an adopted child, an adopted Black child that was from another country. Maybe that's what she's concerned about. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's also that she was afraid that if she ruled against it and we basically got rid of birthright citizenship, that there would be actual attempts on her life. Should she be concerned about that for her job? Absolutely not. I mean, personally, yeah, you want to be concerned about it. You get some more security afterwards, but it just seems to not only myself, but a large number of people that these particular justices, and especially Amy Coney Barrett, um, could be potential influence in the outcomes of their decisions based on threats they perceive on their life. And if that's the case, you got to go. And if that's the case, it's a great argument for not having women on the Supreme Court, unfortunately. Because if your fear of your life is weighing into your decision making, that is not good. And, I don't say that lightly at all. It's just we all watched what happened this week, and we all, or not all, but many of us came away with the question of, are the threats that she's seeing influencing her decision making? Because that's what it seemed like. And it's unfortunate. But there's also a reason why there's no men that were sitting up there. I mean, I'm pretty sure it was Neil Gorsuch who had somebody actually show up to his house to try and assassinate him, who ended up freaking out at the last second and telling police that he was there to kill him, and then gets arrested before he can even do it, and the weapon's taken off him, but he traveled across the country. Like, he wasn't up there talking about the threats on his life, which are very real, but it was Amy Coney Barrett and Elena Kagan. I'm sure if we would have had Ketanji Brown Jackson, she would probably have been like, oh, there's all these racists out there. I'm getting all this racist hatred or whatever. Like, again, these people strive in specific jobs and roles. But clearly, the pressure that they were seeing, or that, and the threats that they were experiencing, were maybe non-existent when they were circuit court judges or court of appeals judges or whatever they were prior. But now it's real. And if they can't take the heat, they need to get out of the kitchen and get somebody else in there that will actually do the job without fear or favor. Now, onto ICE and immigration enforcement. It was obvious to everyone. Well, I'll take a step back. There was a reason why Trump was elected in 2024. The number one reason was immigration. There are these fringe things out there like pardons for libertarians, and maybe the Epstein files, not something he ran on, but was asked, maybe the Epstein files will be released and UFO files will be released. Like, that stuff is not what got him elected. What got him elected from the vast majority of people was the 4 years of Joe Biden opening the border and letting 20 million illegal immigrants cross the border, which put a strain on local governments. And you saw this firsthand in Chicago and New York and other areas, DC, other areas where these people were bussed in droves. I was living in New York at the time, and I saw that drastic change. It's like COVID happened, and then illegal immigration happened, and it was just nonstop show constantly. And then a bunch of Americans also saw as, homeless Americans were passed up to be given free housing, free food, free debit cards, or money, I should say, in some cases, in some locations like New York City, for long periods of time. Meanwhile, you have Americans that are not only homeless, but some that are on the verge of homelessness, not being given anything. And illegal immigrants were getting a ton of benefits that weren't being granted to US citizens. So the number one thing that got Trump elected was illegal immigration. And I knew, and this was part of the reason why, amongst many things, but part of the reason why I got out of New York City was because I saw a bunch of like 20s to like 40s age men that were coming in that were going to have to get deported at some point in time. And the sheer numbers there were not in the favor of ICE looking to deport them. And violence was definitely going to happen. Where I didn't expect to see violence coming from was from wine moms coming from the suburbs with their blue hair, like trying to impede ICE from making arrests of violent criminal aliens. Like, I didn't guess that, but nonetheless, violence happened, and it was foreseen. At least the violence aspect was foreseen. The outcome of who it ended up being, I mean, that was a little bit of a surprise, but the violence itself was foreseen, and I knew that scenes of illegal parents getting deported with their children were not going to play well. You can look all the way back. I think it was either under Clinton or it was under Bush Jr. I can't remember, but I just remember Elio Gonzalez and the pictures that still live on to this day of armed ICE people trying to deport this child. Like, that never plays well. Well, that's not what's happening now. Now it's the parents getting deported, and the media focuses on the kids, which were brought here, against their will, essentially. Their parents came here and brought them across the border, or their parents came here illegally and then had them here, had their kids born here, and now these kids are having their illegal parents deported and they're U.S. citizens because of birthright citizenship, which shouldn't be a thing. But those pictures and videos do not generally play well. And so when you have a left biased media, getting a hold of these pictures, and they're just going to run to town with day after day and minute after minute of like illegal immigrants getting taken with their kids or kids getting deported. Like, it was obvious to everyone. Do I care? No, I do not care. But all of the media runs with these stories. When the parents need to get deported, rightfully so, you have a criminal alien, not just for crossing the border illegally, but maybe murdered somebody here or is drug dealing or was doing other stuff and been arrested here, gotten a DUI. Like, their wife, who is also here illegally, hasn't done anything, but sorry, you guys are together, you're here illegally, you gotta go. Now they have a kid, it's all complicated. Yeah, it looks bad, but it's the reality of the situation. They all gotta go. You're not gonna leave the kid here, you're gonna deport the kid with the parents. And so, like, it was obvious to everyone. So then you kind of add in, like, that happened a little bit, but it wasn't happening enough for the media to get a lot of runway out of it. Then you have protesters impeding on ICE running operations to get dangerous criminals off the streets and deported out of the country. And so these people are always armed. They're dealing with dangerous people. So they have to show up with guns. Then you add in like these wine moms and these activists that are coming from outside the area, blowing whistles, creating a lot of confusion, impeding the vehicle movement of these ICE officers and DHS professionals trying to get their job done and deport these people that have criminal records. And then what do you have? Oh, lo and behold, we get a shooting. We get two shootings in Minnesota. One is of a person who definitely drove in the direction of the officer, and another of a person who showed up to a protest armed. And not only you can show up to a protest armed, but you darn well better not trying to impede in police activity and also confronting police officers. It's like rule number 1 on concealed carry permit classes. Like, this is just a fact. Dudes ends up getting shot. Shouldn't have been there with the gun, impeding police and engaging in aggressive actions with the police. I don't think anybody should die, but when you do stuff like drive your vehicle at a police officer or engage in a physical altercation with a police officer while armed, bad things could potentially happen. It's like Darwinism 101. And now we have these two shootings again of people that decided to run from ICE and then also use their vehicle as a potential weapon. And I like how it went from, oh, they weren't driving at police to, well, they weren't driving that fast. Let me just tell you right now, I have been pulled over a lot. Recently, not so much. When I was in my teens, and I got my driver's license, I had a very fast car and I had very bad impulse control. And so I had upwards of, at one point, negative 60 points on my driving record in Virginia. I went to jail because of just driving, just speeding, not because I was doing anything else, dealing drugs or, anything else. It was literally because of my driving record, right? But at no point in time, whenever I was getting pulled over by the police, did I think, hey, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start my car and try to run over the police officer that is pulled up in front of me on the side of the highway and is walking towards my vehicle. Never. And it's like I think it was the Chappelle, it might have been Chappelle or maybe it was somebody else, but it was like the things not to do when you get pulled over. And especially when you get pulled over while you're black, it's like, turn your car off, turn your music down, greet the officer. It's like these simple things like don't exist in left-wing activism. They're like, well, the ends justify the means. So like, hey, we're going to obstruct, we're going to get on our cars and we're going to try to block them from doing stuff. And then when the officer tries to arrest us, hey, if we just get away, it's fine. Hey, by the way, if you're getting arrested, we have people that are gonna run in and try to, aggressively get between you and the officer to try to break you away so you can get away. Like, that is illegal. They're trying to arrest somebody, and there is active plans to impede the arrest of people that are preventing police officers from doing their job. Like, in what world does that make sense? And then, again, this week we had, or last week we had, or over the last couple of days, we had two shootings, both in my personal opinion, justified. If you're going to get in your car and you're not going to follow demands of police and you're going to drive your car at them, no matter how fast you're driving, you're going to get shot. You're going to get shot. That's just the way it is. White, black, Hispanic, illegal, citizen, doesn't matter who you are, you're probably going to get shot. Would highly recommend, don't do that. But then we had Mark Wayne Mullins come out and say, oh, because of these two shootings, we're not going to, work car traffic stops anymore as part of our operations. Are you kidding me? So essentially, you've given a pass to illegal aliens. As long as you can get to your car and you can drive away, drive at the police officers. They can't shoot you, and they will not come after you. It's kind of like when cities implemented the rule that like if you're trying to pull somebody over and then they speed away, you got to turn your lights off and you got to disengage and just let them go because they might end up killing somebody down the road. They might end up killing somebody regardless. And so what you do is you just embolden criminals. And so in this particular case, it was like, all right, so left-wing activists have won. And by the way, as long as you can get to your car, which they would then train people to do, as long as you get your car, drive away. They cannot arrest you. They will not engage with you. Are you kidding me? Like, that's just absolutely ridiculous. And it was absolutely correct for Trump to come out and put a kibosh on that. But it kind of goes into a broader issue of, was Markwayne Mullins the one that came up with the idea? Did Markwayne Mullins run it by Trump before he did it? Looks like he didn't, which is, it's not going to say good things about immigration enforcement if you have someone rolling back said enforcement that we all voted for just because some left-wing activists decided to, do whatever. No, absolutely not. Triple down. More traffic stops. More. You don't back off. And again, the number one reason why Trump was elected this second term, or some people would say his third term, but his second term, was for immigration enforcement. If you ask anybody who voted for Trump why they voted for Trump, my personal guess would be 90% of them voted for him because they wanted immigration enforcement. And I would say of the 90%, probably 60 to 70% of those people voted for immigration enforcement and deportation of all people here illegally, regardless of whether they have a criminal record or not. That is my personal stance. I can't just go to another country. I enjoy traveling Europe. I love Switzerland. I love Italy. If I could just buy a house and live in the Alps and go skiing year round on a glacier, I would do it in a heartbeat. And if I could just, get a job easily, absolutely. But you cannot do it. You cannot just waltz your way into a country unless, of course, you get in illegally, to then demand that, you get all this stuff and they don't deport you. No, you're going to deport it. If I go through immigration in Germany, let's just say Germany, for instance, and they're like, oh, you here? What brings you here? Oh, I'm going to live here. Oh, do you have a visa? No, I'm just going to, once you stamp my passport, just go ahead and stamp my passport. I'm just going to go ahead and live here. They would immediately deny me entry. And if I did get in illegally and then I was asking for all of these benefits, no. Generally speaking, no. Now, Europe is going through their own thing with legal immigration, but at any rate, I just don't have time for these people crying on the sidelines about immigration enforcement. These people that are crying about it aren't the ones that voted for it. They're just the loudest voices in the room, which happens to be the internet or within media, because most media is left-leaning. But again, you look at any right-leaning media and you look at anybody on the right that's talking about it, it's deport everyone. Deport, deport, deport. No exceptions. You're a business owner, you get fined. You get arrested, or you get arrested and or fined, or you go to jail for hiring illegal immigrants into your business and depriving the right of U.S. citizens to get that job. You prioritized illegal immigrants because you wanted to save money and drive down wages over the benefit of your fellow citizens. You go to jail. Well, you get charged, you get arrested, you get prosecuted, hopefully, and then you go to jail. But yeah, at any rate, let me know what you think in the comments section below. Are you as tired of this anti-deportation stance? Let in illegal immigrants, let them have access to everything. Don't deport certain people just because they haven't committed crimes. Let me know in the comments section below. And as always, keep believing that the best is still ahead for America. Peace.